Let's talk about the aftermath at this month's Hobbytown Tamiya Mini 4-wheel drive, box stock, tune class, and open class races. Unfortunately, I didn't win anything at this month's races, but you know what? Sometimes you win some, you lose some. That's how it goes in Mini 4-wheel drive racing. So I'm going to give you the details about what happened. Box stock. So I came in late for box stock, so I only had 4 chances to get into one of the 5 lanes. So I used this car right here, and this was my best performing car, but unfortunately it was still not good enough. It was certainly fast, but there were some problems with the car, such that I had to basically replace the chassis of this car. The screws that were holding the brake, as well as a couple of my rollers, were loose. So they were broken basically. So if you were to try to twist them tight with a screwdriver, it was like spinning infinitely inside the screw hole. So obviously there's a cracked post on both the top and the bottom, as well as a cracked screw hole on the bottom of my brake. So that doesn't always lend to the greatest stability in your car. So I basically replaced the chassis with another one, and yeah, this is now my replaced chassis car, so this is good to go for future races. So oh well, that's how the ball bounces. This is something where you have to learn how to prep your cars before you enter any races. I didn't do any prep work, unfortunately, because I was busy with other things during the week, but that's a lesson to be learned, everybody. Make sure you prep your cars before you go into any big race. Always put your best foot forward in your racing, and always prepare for your competition, because there's going to be a lot of awesome competition every single month at these races, whether they be at Hobbytown or AAA, or even little backyard races. Sometimes those backyard races can have the most fearsome competition, because some of those people who race in those backyard races, they have a lot of experience with their own homegrown tracks. They have experimented with every single nuance of a track imaginable. So those backyard races are no joke, everybody. They are awesome. McBite has them all the time. His race layouts are superior to a lot of racer layouts out there. So cool, so cool. So for Tune Class, I raced my new car, Ganesha, and this is my new Speed Demon, as you all know. And you know what? This car handily got into the finals of the semifinals, that is, for lane 1. So unfortunately, something caused it to course out, and on successive runs, I couldn't figure it out, but this thing kept coursing out. So there's something that changed about this car, and I'll have to analyze what it is. Something about its stability just was kind of a little wonky, but you know what, that's okay. This is the first time I tried racing this car, so I need to make some minor adjustments here and there, and I'm sure it'll be just as good as my car Pango, which won me last month. So I was going to enter this again as a possible second choice car, or maybe even my first choice car, but I said to myself, you know what, I've already played with this, I've already won with this. Why not give the new car a shot? So typically I like to enter 1 or 2 cars in an event. Other people might enter 5 or 6 cars in an event. That's fine. They do what they do, I do what I do. And so I want to just make sure that the cars that I put in, my 1 or 2 cars, are my most race-worthy cars for that track. And truth be told, the stability of this was a little wonky because it's very light. It's the lightest Tune Class car I have. It's also the fastest Tune Class car that I have. So I had to make sure that every weight that I added to this was going to be like proper, right? So I did see it like wobble a couple of times when it was on the track, and that was a big concern for me, but still I wanted to race this just because it was the new kid on the block. So I'm glad that I did. I'm glad that this has some racing experience behind it. The track at Hobbytown was mostly a 3-lane track, as you see here. And yeah, it was a pretty formidable 3-lane track. The only 5-lane components were like very, very little. The big section of it you'll see is the 5-lane, but really it was a 3-lane track with some 5-lane sections thrown in. So for open class, originally I wanted to race Wolfie. Wolfie for that particular track, it would have been amazing, because in practice runs it was like blowing the doors down on most of the cars that it was racing against. The big problem, though, was it had a broken chassis. And by that I mean the post. As you see here, the post where you place the palm roller, as you see on this side, this is what a good post looks like. This is what a bad broken one looks like. So it actually had this. So this was what was on this car when I was running it in practice runs, and it was still beating the pants out of a lot of cars. And yeah, I didn't realize this until I finished my practice run, and I noticed that my wheel was wobbling. And I was like, I can't race this with good conscience, because something else might get damaged in there in the process. And, you know, like, I don't think I can win with a broken car. So I just took this car out and I replaced it with another car. And I didn't really have another car that I wanted to race in there. So I said, you know what, let's try my experimental car, my pro car. We'll have that as my second choice. My first choice will be Firefly. Firefly's fast. All you people out there who know me know that I love Firefly. Firefly is one of my first flapper design cars, and yes, this car is very formidable. In various incarnations, it has placed in the top 3 at Hobbytown and other races. So this is pretty cool car here. And it looks really cool. And I call it Firefly because of these light green accents on it. Yeah, pretty cool. So this is a VS chassis. People have told me that, or people have said in general, VS chassis are antiques. They're antiquated. You don't want to use them anymore. There's like, just use VZ. And it's like, no, VS is actually sturdier than VZ chassis. But the thing is, a lot of people don't like the concept of cutting and drilling and making things the way they want to make them. So I have no problems. I have no issues with making the chassis the way I want them to be. So I have no problem with shaving off these parts using Dremel or maybe nippers. So that's basically what I did when I replaced this. So this is the old chassis here. And as you see, I took out the wings on the sides because I like to take out the wings on the sides, as you see there. So what I did was I used nippers to remove the wings on each side. And then I also used nippers to remove the stuff on the inside. And I used this nail file. This is a nail file for your nails, right? And you can use this. This is a 100/180 nail file. And notice how thick it is. Notice how big it is. You get like 10 in a pack for real cheap on Amazon. And you can use this in place of using that file that Tamiya sells, which is like really expensive and does the job, but it does it very slowly. You can actually get your job done quickly using a nail file. So this is like a $1 purchase versus that $15 purchase from those nail files. So I don't know, I think those nail files cost more than that. But basically, after you get a coarse cut using your nippers, then you place your nail file here. Place the coarse end, this is the coarse end, against here, and then you just keep scraping. And you scrape not just up and down like this, but also from side to side like this. And also do it at angles, right? Slight angles when you're moving in and out at angles, and also angles this way. And also use the fine side, the other side, to also buff out all the burrs, all the little burrs that appear on the top and the inside. So yeah, you can use this as a perfectly acceptable solution to shaving out the insides for your battery compartment. This is the battery compartment right here so that the batteries can sit a little bit lower than usual, right? So, and also for easy access of pushing the batteries out of the chassis. Because VS chassis are notorious for having batteries that are like, you put them in and it's hard to get them out unless you've got a strong fingernail, right? And since I'm a girl and I've got long nails, like I don't want to bust my nails trying to remove these batteries. So having these slots right here is so much easier for me to remove the batteries from a VS chassis. Pretty cool. So yeah, I basically moved all the parts from this old chassis onto here. Now this is like a brand new car. So again, it's very formidable now. And one thing I didn't notice, so here's the funny thing. One of the reasons why I didn't get all 5 chances for this car. So remember, I lost a chance because I was late with box stock. I also lost a chance with tune class as well. And what happened there was, on my final run for the 5th lane, I dropped my car, and the wheels were spinning before I dropped them. And then suddenly it went bzzz, and it stopped. And then I picked it up again, the wheels are spinning, and I dropped it on the track and it went bzzz. And I was like, what's going on here? Right? So the car wasn't working, and I was wondering why. So I took it apart, and I noticed on the inside, the little gear that you place on the motor, that was actually shifted off by a few millimeters. And you can see in the picture right here, you can see what I'm talking about. It was like crazy, right? Like the torque, I normally don't use torque-tuned motors, but this torque-tuned motor, I decided to make this car into a torque-tuned car, and the violent behavior of torque-tuned motors, they spin so harshly that the gears of the motor can like slide off the shaft. So I feel this way, like it was a purple gear that I had on the end of the shaft. I replaced it with a black gear because the black gears hold on better, and also they seem to have a little more surface contact so that if they do slide off, they still make contact with the counter gear and they still propel the car forward. So it was my huge mistake to use a stupid purple gear on my motor shaft. I should have used a black gear like I've always done. So someone told me, oh, there's no reason why you can't use purple gears on motors. And I'm like, yes, there is. On torque-tuned motors or power dash motors, I think you really need the black gear for your motor. The carbon gear or the black gear that comes in most FMA kits, you need that instead of the purple one. The purple one might be useful for box stock, for example, because the motor is never going to be so torque heavy that it's going to cause the gear to shift off of the motor shaft. But for torque tuned, power dash, all those violent motors that have huge torque, you definitely need the black gear for that. So that's what happened also with this over time. I took it apart, right, and it had a black gear on the motor shaft, but I noticed it was also a few millimeters off of the shaft, but it still ran. It still beat all these other cars in practice runs because there was still surface contact with the black gear against the counter gear. So definitely use the black gear, folks. I would say that those purple gears, just use them for box stock or throw them out and just replace all of your purple gears with black gears. So the difference is amazing. So if you take a look at the difference between a purple and a black gear, you'll see what I am talking about. So you see here, this purple gear has less surface contact than the black gear. So the black gear, even if it comes off the shaft a little bit, it'll still make contact with the counter gear. So use black gears, everybody. Definitely use black gears. So the lessons to take away for this month, folks, is gears on motor shafts, and make sure that your chassis are in great condition. So always replace your chassis if needed. So you should never have a situation where you have loose posts, broken posts, cracked posts, things like that on a chassis. Your chassis, this is like one of the most important parts of your car. This is the body structure. This is what enables your car to be stable and solid, rock solid in some cases. So chassis are cheap. If you want to replace chassis, you can always buy chassis from Tamiya. You can also buy car kits, additional car kits, and just use the chassis from those and use the rest of the parts as spare parts. So if you buy a whole bunch of kits, very inexpensive kits, then you have a lot of parts to play with. So for example, mock frames. Mock frames are only $13 for a kit, right? So you can get so many good chassis that way, assuming that your color chassis is the same as a mock frame. And you have all these other parts to work with in case you need spares for other mock frames, for whatever other cars that need super hard tires and white wheels, and maybe you need spare parts for things like 3.5 to 1 gears and things like that. Like, don't be afraid to buy kits just for spare parts, because that's what professional racers do. They stock up on all these spare parts so they can use them to replace whatever they need to so that they keep their current cars race-worthy. So yeah, pretty cool. So everybody, if you like this video, please slam the like button, subscribe to my channel. You'll see more videos just like this one. Until next time, everybody, see you. Bye.